So let's do another quick discussion on some of the basics of the firearm industry. In this case, a very common question is, hey, how do I grip a handgun? Okay? Super, super common question. And the answer is that there's a couple different techniques, but the overall industry, we've agreed on some of these basic guidelines. So let's talk about it real quick. The first thing is, what is the purpose of our grip? Well, what we want to do when we grip our firearm, we want to be able to bring it onto our target. We want to be able to acquire our sights and then go ahead and then engage that target consistently and timely every single time. So we build our grip in a way that allows us to do that. And you only do this through repetition. Something that's very important to understand is that you're not going to have this on day 1. You're probably not going to have it on day 20. It takes some time. That's part of the reward of the industry and of this sport, is that it's actually pretty challenging and it takes that discipline. And you will, when you train and when you learn, you'll learn to enjoy getting better, and you'll see that develop over time. So that's what we want to do. We want to be able to grab our firearm the same way each time, get our sights onto the target, and then engage quickly and accurately with as much repetition as possible, okay? So how do we do that? Well, with our right hand, and understand that if you are left-handed, everything I'm going to tell you still applies, it's just in reverse, okay? And you will find that not every gun has controls for lefties, so I don't know what to tell you. Sorry, guys. You want to take your right hand and have your bottom 3 fingers choked up on the trigger guard as much as you can, okay? The reason for this is you want to have that nice, good, tight grip on there, okay? You want to grab the firearm with your trigger finger off the trigger, right, until your sight's on target, ready to shoot, just like we would for any other shooting in accordance with the 4 fundamental rules of firearm safety. You want to have a nice firm grip with that hand, okay? Now, another very important part is in the back of the firearm, you want to make sure that you have your thumb, you want to have that choked up on that dovetail also as much as you can. Why do we do that? Well, the reason we do that is because if you look at the way you hold a firearm, you notice that it has a little bit of leverage on your hand. And as it cycles and as it shoots, it creates an arm that makes your hand want to turn. Well, the more moment that you give that firearm, the more energy that your hand has to compensate for. So we want to make sure that we have our hand as high up on that as possible, okay? Now, additionally, we want to make sure that this pinky of our right hand in this case is as low on the grip as possible. Now, this is a fairly large gun, so it's easy for me to get my hand nice and spread out on here. Some smaller guns, you may find that you have a little bit less room for your fingers. But in this case, we take that pinky and give that pinky a nice tight squeeze. And what that's going to do is that's going to enable you to have the maximum amount of leverage then to control that recoil with, okay? So we want to minimize the amount of leverage that the gun has to recoil, and we maximize our own ability, our own leverage on the firearm as well, okay? Now, that's our right hand. Our right thumb can kind of lay over there on the right side of the firearm. Let's go ahead and change positions real quick. Our right thumb can be over there on the right side of the firearm, and it just kind of rests in a comfortable place. I find that most of the slide releases are in a pretty good place to put that right thumb. Now with your left hand, now we want to take our all 4 fingers with that left hand, and we want to place those underneath that trigger guard and wrap them over our other 3 fingers. And now we have this question of, what do we do with this thumb over here? Well, when in doubt, if you just take that thumb and place it forward on the underneath the slide of the gun, that's going to be a pretty non-controversial place to put it, okay? A lot of techniques will tell you to take that thumb and point that thumb where you want to aim the firearm. That's not a bad technique, and it's something that you can definitely think about. But for the most part, you want your 2 thumbs to be overlaying each other and pointed in one direction, in one general direction. Now, if you want to be able to shoot multiple shots, then in that case, you're going to want to focus on some other aspects as well. And that's going to be to make sure that you get a nice, firm wrist, that you kind of, if your veins should pop out on your wrist a little bit, and that's a little bit of a flex in that wrist. And then additionally, it should then go to that arm as well. And what that gives you the ability to do is you've got a nice solid foundation to control all of the energy that comes out of that gun. And when you practice that for a little while, you may find there's going to be techniques that work better or worse, but what that's going to do is it's going to give you the ability to control the energy that that gun releases. What are some of the variations on these techniques? You hear a lot about the 80-20 rule, okay? And when you hear that, what that means is that you should grab with 80% of your force from your non-dominant hand and 20% of your force from your dominant hand. That technique has been around for a very long time. I'm not sitting here trying to say that any technique is good or bad, by the way. I think that a lot of grip specifically is very tailored to the individual, and you need to consciously think about these different techniques and see what works best for you. 80-20 has been around for a long time. Lots of firearms instructors are going to teach you that, okay? You may hear the push-pull technique, okay? Where you're using one hand to push on the firearm and a second hand to then pull on the firearm to create that tension, right? And you already have then those muscles working against each other to help counter the energy coming out of the firearm in that muzzle flip. One of the grips that I found that works very well for me, and I learned this from a former Marine friend of mine, is called a cascading grip. And what he means by that, and I alluded to this earlier, is that you grip the firearm from the bottom tighter than you do towards the top. So in this case, I focus on making sure that my pinky has a very nice firm grip. Additionally, I'll also make sure that that the pinky on my left hand is also tighter than maybe the fingers are towards the top. The reason for this is, like we talked about earlier, is just a game of leverage, okay? There's other techniques out there as well. You'll see people that take their non-dominant finger and they put it on in front of the trigger guard. There's a couple other variations on the grip, and all of them are worth trying. But if you're looking for the fundamentals, the basics of a grip, you want to take your bottom three fingers, put them up tight on the trigger guard, have the back of your hand as choked up on the dovetail as you can. Take that left hand, those four fingers underneath the trigger guard, get a nice firm grip, take both of those thumbs symmetrically, put them on that side, and you'll find that you're set up for success.